Oh yeah.
In this video, I'll walk you through 3 different troubleshooting jobs and include tips along the way. These Y filters were installed upside down, but and they're on municipal water, but even at that, they've only been in, let's see, 6 years. Look at all that junk. The junk is critter residue from nesting inside the anti-siphon cavity and then flushing through when the water got turned on. Something's definitely restricting the flow, and I've already taken that valve apart, so I'm not sure what's going on here. You can see there's hardly any water. That should be blowing out like a geyser. I cleaned the screens out using a repurposed toothbrush and water pressure. The next thing to test to try to get to the bottom of this is checking the water pressure. And you can see here we're only at 40 psi. Normally a house on municipal water in the city would be at 50 with a pressure regulator on there. The pressure regulators are factory set at 50 psi for the houses. And this is below that, so now I'm going to go find the POC and see if there's a pressure regulator on the pipe going into the house. Here's where the water meter is off the street, and there's this box here. I've been curious about what this is. This was almost completely buried. But I just happened to see the corner of it sticking out, and I was curious what this is, being so close to the water meter, wondering if this is the shutoff for the add-on building over there, or if it's just for the house. So take it off. There's a shutoff valve, and this is on I don't know, it looks like 1.5 inches. Let's see if I can see. Written on here. Yeah, it's 2 inch. And then there's a pressure regulator right there, and it has not been adjusted. You can see the bolt is all the way up, but we don't know exactly where that's going. We can find out. I can turn that valve off and see if we lose water to the house. So let's try that. And there's dirt in the way. That's never been turned off. So I'm gonna have to get that junk out of the way first. And just to take a look at the water meter setup here, because I was curious about that 2 inch to see if that was overkill or if they really do have water piping here set up with the meter being the right size where that is legit. But for just a house, 2 inches by itself is overkill. Cheapy little handle. This thing bends. See how bent it is? Anyway, this is a 1 inch meter, and I'll show here on the display what size piping it's intended for the 1 inch. I'm pretty sure it's just 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches, but I think it's just 1.25 inches. So that means that 2 inches is definitely overkill, but we'll see. That thing says China on it. That makes me really nervous to try to turn that thing. I'm concerned it'll break the wings off of the handle. That makes me nervous. These things are usually stuck after a few years. These cheapy ones. I'll give it a try here. I can't even budge it. Okay, this is an NR3XL model. It has a range of 15 to 75 psi. You usually set those things to be about 65 psi. That's kind of the rule of thumb. Single story is usually set at 50. Well, I'm gonna go see if I can find the POC. Okay, I did verify that this is the POC area, and we turned this off and found that it does not go into the house, but it actually comes out of the house and goes over here to this building. So there was no water coming out. That's how I knew when I shut that off over there. So the next step is to adjust that pressure regulator bolt and see if we can increase the water pressure, because you can see it's only 40 here as well. So that means that the water going to the irrigation valves is actually passing through this house, coming out and heading up there, which is not good. Ultimately, you want to have the feed line for the irrigation system coming straight off the main line, the service line from the water meter. Because once it's passing through the house, usually the copper piping is reduced down to 1/2 inch going into the house. And then, you know, in most cases, this might be a different situation since it's a custom home, but this is 1 inch copper coming out. But if you've got 1/2 inch and then you're bumping back up to 1 inch, it's not really helping any. So I adjusted that bolt down. We're gonna go test that water pressure and see if we've increased it at the house. Yep, got it almost to 50. I'm gonna go see if I can squeeze a little more out of it. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can squeeze some more out. This is what I use to do this. This is shallow in here and I can reach in here fine, but sometimes I have to use an extension for that socket. But these use a 9/16, and then there's a hex nut under here that's also 9/16. It's best to use an end wrench with, and you got to loosen that up so that you can turn this. And this turns the opposite way you think it would. To make the bolts go down, you would think it would go clockwise, but it actually goes the opposite direction. And just a fun note, these are Craftsman tools that I bought decades ago when Sears and Roebuck was still in business. Leave a comment and let me know if you have Craftsman tools that you got when Sears was still around. Okay, that's as good as it's gonna get. 50 PSI. So let's go see what the performance is like on the drip system now. Okay, let's see what this is like over here now. See if we get more water flow through there. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, so in this case, with the low water pressure, low water volume, we don't even need these on here. But are we going to take them off? I don't know. I'm going to ponder that. If we took them off, we would definitely get better performance out of the line. But let's put this back on and see what it looks like coming out of the tubing. If I do take this off, obviously I'll flip that over. Yeah, that's better. Normally it should be kicking like crazy, but we'll take whatever we can get. Okay, now we're going to see how this is acting out here. Well, not really seeing much difference. And I don't know how this drip system was installed. I don't know if it's pinched off somewhere, like from coming under that walkway. I just happened to see a little white spot there, so I uncovered this and found this is how it's going under. So they did run pipe under here. That's good. And teed off. So that means there should be a figure 8 up here. And I guess I wish guys would be more generous about the drip tubing. This should be up here, but instead they end it right where the last is. They end it right at the last emitter. So I'm going to pull this off. Yeah. Oh, that's plenty. I don't know where the end of the tubing is down in this area. That's the dead plant that we've been looking at. I just happened to see this white spot here. So it's good to know. That's in this bed. This is line number 1. That one's number 3 over there. I know the end of this tubing is down at the bottom down there. Well, I was just about to go up to the valves and dig up the PVC pipe up there where it ties, or it converts to the drip, to see if there's piping down there that actually comes down here to this area. And I just found the other twin to that one with the T over here that feeds this area. And then I got to look in here, seeing this tubing here. I scraped it back and I was sure that this went right along here and fed that. So I thought, well, maybe. So I came around the corner here and dug this stuff up, and look what we found. It converts here. That's line number 3 for this area and the big area right there. And this is number 1. And it goes down all the way to the other side over there where it pops up where I showed right here by the front door. But why does it start all the way over here? That should be PVC all the way over there. That doesn't make sense, but it doesn't have to, I guess, does it? So here is number 1 going here. So maybe this actually goes down to that elbow right there. There's no number written on that one, but I'm going to trace that tubing. This 3-inch wide trenching shovel comes in handy for this scraping back drip tubing. So I traced it down and it goes right here. So it does convert to PVC and then ends up down there by the front door. So that means we don't have a whole lot of flow here. We are going downhill, that does help. And that line down there really isn't the big problem. It's this area here, which is number 3, that's the issue. So we're going to dig a little more. I went ahead and marked that number 1, and I showed the direction of the flow. And this one I marked number 3 and showed the direction of the flow. And I'll do the same thing on that one. Now that I know that down below this hill we've got that PVC to drip tubing transition that goes to 1 and 3 in front, then we're not watering anything in the back. I went ahead and cut and crimped this tubing as well. That's number 3. That one was number 1. So we don't need anything going to the back now. So I'm going to turn this on yet again and see if that helped the performance any at all. Well, I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference, but one of the things that has to be considered is these emitters. I'm not familiar with these. These are not emitters I deal with. They may be pressure compensating, and with that, it's possible that no matter what I do, this isn't going to change unless I had honking high water pressure, which we're not going to have here. So I think that's as good as it's going to get under the circumstances. If I took those pressure regulators off, it may not make any difference at all. So I'm going to go talk with her and see what she'd like to do. So regardless, either way, if this is as good as it's going to get, then all we do is just set the run time to run longer. It is watering. It's just going to take longer to get the amount of water that you want. This is a perfect example where they weaved here, went up here, put an emitter against that rose, came around to the front of this rose and went back up to that one and put an emitter there. And then the back side of that one, when all they had to do was do like this tubing is doing right now and just gone straight through, and then just popped an emitter at each one along the way. I'm tracing this drip tubing, found that it's, as you can see by my unburying here, that it was deep underground here, and because of that, over by this citrus tree, the roots have swallowed it. So I'm going to have to cut through that. And then it's unburied over there, as you can see. In my tracing, part of what I was looking for where it converts from PVC to drip tubing from the sprinkler valves over there. This is not a best practice. They've got PVC coming over under the lawn, which is good. Then they convert immediately at that elbow to drip, and then we've got this dressed bend here going to this T. It's actually best to convert up here at ground level. So bring the piping up here and then convert. Makes it a whole lot easier when you have to replace the tubing later on, instead of having to go down here. And now when this has to be replaced at the fitting, that elbow is going to have to be cut off, and you can see it's right under the concrete already as it is. And then that assembly is going to have to be rebuilt. If you bring it up here at ground level and convert using threaded fittings instead of glued fittings, then it makes it a whole lot easier, and you don't have to do any cutting. So I found that T there, and I've had to break this free. See how this was pulled tight? Because those roots were pulling it down. And I've been breaking roots all the way around here. This has been pulled down tight, several inches. And it goes all the way around and ends here. But that's all under thick roots. And I am freeing the drip tubing. I'm free! Busted through all those roots. That should have never happened. One, it should have never been wrapped that tight around the tree. The roots go way out, and you want to feed the roots out there. Doesn't need it at the base of the plant now. And it should have never been allowed to be buried and then have the roots grow over it. This next job is dealing with a drip line that has no water flowing from the emitters, yet the valve is operational. The first thing I noticed is that the drip line filters were installed incorrectly over 30 years ago. These filters are called inline filters and are intended for situations where you can easily remove and clean out the filters, not like this under a sprinkler valve. Most people like this homeowner don't know that there's a filter to clean out because most landscapers never inform them. There's no reasonable way to get access to the filter and clean it out, so the owner agreed to have me replace these valves and filters and replace them with the proper Y filters like these so they can be serviced. The valve wires are corroded from south-facing sun exposure for 30 years. I could just replace the valve solenoids as a way to replace the wires, but as old as the valves are, we might as well replace the valves while we're at it. The left valve is the one that had no flow to the drip line, so I dug out the pressure regulator and spun off the swivel adapter. The screen was completely clogged with debris, mostly dead critters that had nested in the anti-siphon cap like I showed at the beginning of this video at the very first job. But this is 30 years worth. Wait till you see the filters. The filter mesh was completely disintegrated, so it was of no use. That's why all the debris was flowing through. If it hadn't been for that swivel adapter screen, all that debris would have clogged the emitters downstream. These inline filters have cheapy filters and don't stand up to harsh conditions. Here's the right filter. Somehow it didn't disintegrate, but it is clogged with dead critters like pincher bugs. After installing the new Hunter anti-siphon valves and Y-filter pressure regulator combos called Hunter HFRs, the left valve's drip line connection is flexible, so I was able to connect it okay using the original parts. The right valve's assembly didn't line up with the buried PVC piping, so I tried a couple of unsuccessful techniques and ended up doing something I didn't want to do. I attached drip tubing to the already attached drip tubing to get the flexibility I needed. These valves need to be covered to protect them from the sun so that the tubing lasts as long as possible. Next time that assembly needs to be rebuilt, the piping will need to be dug up and rebuilt to accommodate the valve. I just did it this way because the owner's on a limited retirement income and needed this repair job to be as least expensive as possible. I do my best to accommodate my clients this way, and they appreciate it. Sometimes the techniques used in these instances aren't ideal, but they work. I always strive to do the optimum solution when possible. There is no magic in using these 1/4-inch tubing to go to plants. They've got these going to plants that are right next to the 1/2-inch tubing. You can put the emitter on the 1/2-inch tubing right next to the plant. Over here, if they would have run the tubing between those two plants, right smack in the middle between them, and come right through here, they could have hit those two plants with emitters off that 1/2-inch tubing. They could have hit that blue fescue with one, and these two, just by coming straight through here. And there would have been no need for 1/4-inch tubing here and here. Same here. All they had to do is move that over a little bit, and they could have had this 1/2-inch tubing with an emitter on it, and no need for 1/4-inch. But people do that because they think, is that the way you're supposed to do it? Because they see it done that way a lot. They don't realize that there's no need for it. Now I see why I can't see much of the drip tubing, because it goes under weed cloth. And the weed cloth is under dirt. Clever. So now we have no idea where the drip tubing is going. One last tip. When you do your system inspections or are looking for the reason why there's no flow beyond a certain point, look for a pinch point like this where a root or soil has heaved up at a jute staple and pinched off the water flow. If you can't remove the staple with pliers, then try cutting the staple. If that doesn't work, you may need to cut the tubing on either side of the staple and reattach the tubing with a coupler. This is another good reminder to use staples only as needed and do an annual inspection to make sure this doesn't happen. Remember your free downloads to help you with your irrigation system, including this one that shows the main components of your drip system and their proper terminologies. And if you're getting benefit from this channel, consider purchasing your materials from my resources site linked below. There's a dedicated page just for drip stuff and many other pages with hundreds of tools, timers, and other materials for your irrigation system, and thank you for your purchases. Thanks for watching. See you next time.